We are live.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. I am Anthropomantic Fiend. I do horror, and I guess today horror-adjacent things on the internet.
Gothic.
Definitely Gothic.
Okay.
And I am once again, it's been almost a whole year, but I am once again joined by my friend David.
Hi.
Yep. I know right now we have Jacques Lefanu, who was there for the Carmilla stream, and my friend D. We will probably be joined by more people later, but for those of us who are watching replay or who will, be coming in at some point in time, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Names on the screen. I am I'm primarily a playwright. Also, I'm a theater critic and sometimes director. I live in Los Angeles. Born in San Francisco, raised in Florida, went to school in New York. I have done adaptations of both Dracula and Carmilla. And you, my friend, have reviewed both of them.
I have.
They right now I've finished the first draft of it, of a three-part original Sherlock Holmes Gothic murder mystery that I will be producing via the same venue I did for Carmilla the radio play last year. I.e. Shadows on the Air. This will be a 3-episode story.
Excellent.
Each episode about 45 minutes long. Still need some tightening of the script. I expect that will be finished by February at the latest. Then we'll have some auditions and get into production.
Excellent. So first of all, hello to Dice Rollin in the chat, who was there for the Carmilla stream. I believe they're the one who made the joke about pronouncing female the same as tamale that cracked everyone else up.
Which was wonderful.
That was wonderful. But I was about to say something else, and now I can't remember what it was. So I have a few questions written out to ask you, but I also want to open the floor to anyone in the chat who wants to ask questions, and I will just highlight those as they happen.
Cool.
Yep.
That sounds a lot of fun.
All right. So the first question I have is not specifically related to your Sherlock Holmes play. It's just a very general, what have you been, reading, watching, listening to recently that is inspiring or has just been fun for you?
Finally caught up on the Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to season 4 of that.
Me too.
Loved Wednesday.
I did too. Wednesday was fantastic.
I do think that the male characters could use some more work.
Yeah.
They were subtle. Let's see what other things. I did for Christmas / birthday, one of my friends took me to see Wakanda Forever. That's quite good.
Sorry, what was it? I didn't quite catch the name.
Wakanda Forever.
Oh, excellent.
Honestly, that's only the second movie this year I've seen in the theater. The other one would have been The Batman, which I enjoyed very much.
The Batman was fantastic.
Yes. That's my favorite Batman movie now.
That is very fair. I still have a place in my heart for Batman Returns, which I watch every year before Christmas, but the Batman was fantastic.
I recently saw The Glass Onion.
Still need to see that. I loved Knives Out.
Me too. uh, on both. I like both of them very, very much.
Hmm.
I don't suppose it'll be a huge. This is not a spoiler, but we do learn, and the director said you didn't know this. Was in a interview he said, "Yeah, Benoit Blanc is gay."
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and there's some marvelous, uh, tiny little cameos.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, um, some of them are no longer with us,
All right.
and some of them are incredibly appropriate. Um, One of them is Angela Lansbury.
Oh, wow.
So, oh, what else have I been seeing? I'm getting ready to watch Midnight Mass.
I love Midnight Mass. I'm actually this coming term at my college doing a directed study with some friends on religious themes and horror, and I'm going to be rewatching Midnight Mass for that. So I'm
Oh,
very
cool.
excited.
Very, very cool. Um, Something I've already mentioned to you is that after The Whispering Stones, which is
Hmm.
the Sherlock Holmes story again, the next one for Shadows on the Air will be a story based, a story based on Elizabeth Bathory,
Yes.
the Blood Countess of the Carpathians.
Hmm.
And that will be called Princess of Shadows.
I'm very excited for that based on what you've told me.
Oh, and I did speak, I did a very nice speech in front of, or for, via Zoom, the World Dracula Congress.
I I wished I could have been there for that. School was just eating me alive at the time, so
Well, I gave a talk about called Reinventing Dracula and noting, addressing the idea, okay, if you're going to, why, first of all, why reinvent Dracula? And that has had so many adaptations. And
hmm.
if you are going to, how are you going to bring something new to the table?
Hmm.
So, and they gave me a little bit of an award for being a good speaker,
Oh,
basically.
that's wonderful.
Yeah, the Golden Bat Award,
That's great.
which is fun. A lot of people got Golden Bats. I thought it was very nice,
Nice.
very nice. And yeah. I also worked at Comic Con in December in
Mm.
Los Angeles. And got into this long discussion of what you should call different groups of characters.
I saw those posts on Facebook, just
Okay, I thought, yeah,
groups of different cosplays of specific. That was fun.
yeah, yeah, that was a lot of fun. And, because after a while you're bored. So, yeah,
Excellent.
so, uh, yeah, there are other things going on, but that's great. I've started writing a play about Medusa.
Mm.
So we will see what happens with that.
All right. It doesn't look like we have any questions in the chat yet, but before we move on to, wow, my notebook has flipped way back to reviews that I did in 2021, just while it was sitting in my lap. So before we get into other questions, I did want to show something else off just to see if you've read it at all, because I picked this up at a classic horror convention over the summer and started reading it. But this is Vampirus Carmilla. It's a like Tales from the Crypt, Vampirella, EC Comics style horror anthology comic, but it is hosted by Carmilla herself.
I have not seen that.
It
I
is
will.
it is the schlockiest thing you'll ever read, but all of the characters focus on female monsters, and
Mhm.
all of them are sort of have little wraparound scenarios with Carmilla coming in and making really bad vampire puns. So it's really delightful.
Not Vampirella, but Carmela.
Yep.
Basically, yeah. Oh, I really enjoyed the Sandman, by the way.
Yes, for sure. Sandman was wonderful. I loved the extra the bonus episode with the 2 additional stories as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm such a cat person, though, of course. So,
Of course, yeah.
uh, somebody I noticed mentioned just there was a mention when you were announcing this on Facebook about Sherlock Holmes being in public domain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's a point should be made. Most of it has been in public domain everywhere for
Mm,
quite a while.
yeah.
It's only the last collection of short stories that was in public domain, and it was in still under copyright, and then
Mm,
only in the United States due to
interesting.
vagaries of copyright law. Um, and I suppose you heard that Conan Doyle's estate were being total dicks about it,
Ugh,
and are always trying to, even though it's public domain, it's public domain. They're constantly going to court trying to get fees.
of course.
Finally, in this country, it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and their legal argument, which was they were throwing at Mr. Leslie Klinger, who's the editor of the new annotated Dracula, as well as
Yeah.
the annotated H.P. Lovecraft. And
Both of those are on my shelf over there. I'm
uh,
taking the annotated Dracula to school with me because I'm also reading that for my directed study.
aha, cool. Um, their argument was that everything involving Sherlock Holmes should be considered one body of work.
Mm.
Therefore, if any of it was in copyright, all of it should be in copyright. And
Oh,
the Supreme Court said, that's not how copyright law works. Go away. Stop bothering us. Because, quite understandably, that is not
yes.
the way. Also, one of the rules of copyright is when something enters public domain, it never leaves it,
Yes.
ever. So, yeah, that's part of what's things you have to do.
All right. Uh, so before I get into more Sherlock Holmes related questions, for one thing, my friend Sauron Baggins, who I connected with via Maven of the Eventide's Discord server,
Ah,
who's now on my Discord server, has finally caught one of my live streams.
yay!
We talk hammer horror and any anything that strikes our fancy an awful lot. But I remember our hammer horror conversations a lot. Uh, and then keeping the questions more general still, Jacques asks, have either of us read Orochi, which I've never heard of?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. You'll have to fill us in. Jacques always just jumps in with recommendations for things that I'm not familiar with but sound really cool. So
That sounds like a good name.
yeah,
I wonder who or what it is.
I don't either. I'm sure Jacques will tell us though, and I'm excited. So for my second question, what appealed to you about doing a Sherlock Holmes story, and what sort of traditional aspects from the original Doyle things did you really want to uphold, and what, if anything, did you want to change or subvert or add on to or alter in some way? What did you want? What appealed to you about adapting Sherlock Holmes, and what did you want to do with it?
Well,
Your
I mean, first I'll go down to my early teens when I first read the complete works of Sherlock Holmes.
Mhm.
And this was just about the time my parents moved into a different house. It was this old Adams family style place. And so there was peeling wallpaper in the bedroom my twin brother and I shared. And I was enough of a fan after reading this A Study in Scarlet. I actually took a red pen and did this kind of gothic
Mm.
on the exposed uh, plaster where the wallpaper had fallen down, because that's one of the basic clues when you study in Scarlet.
Right.
Well, I always really, really enjoyed reading those, and then I started, of course, looking for different, adaptations. Um, and there's some I really, really like, and there's some I really, really don't care for at all, and there's some I really, really want to see very much. Japanese Miss Sherlock, I very much want to see.
I, I've
There's
I've seen trailers for that floating around, but I've never checked it out.
There is a Russian, i.e., Soviet era Sherlock Holmes that's marvelous.
Hmm.
Not only because it's good, but because it's just seen through such a different eye.
Interesting.
Including, for example, um, Russians are a lot more comfortable culturally with like physical expressions of affection,
Hmm.
and to see that between Holmes and Watson is quite interesting.
Okay.
Um, that No, I much enjoyed Sherlock. Yes, even the last season, I liked it.
I
Um,
liked it too. I have mixed feelings about certain choices that were made, but I
sure,
liked it.
sure. I mean, it's not like every single episode was a pearl, but
No.
um, and I like the debate surrounding it. I can still remember like the first Sherlock Holmes film I ever saw, which was uh, Hound of the Baskervilles with Stuart Granger.
Hmm.
Wasn't very good. But my favorite remains probably Jeremy Brett.
Hmm.
And but looking at all this and seeing the different sundry versions, yes, I was so interested in. I have that impulse of if I fall in love with something, I want to tell my own version. And there's so much Sherlock Holmes around, and I thought again, I would like to do something like this. And I thought, remembered, hey, it's in public domain, I can do this. And especially after Sherlock ended.
Hmm.
So I am, my nose is itching for some reason. I apologize.
Happens.
Um, my, and I always really loved the more gothic stories of Sherlock Holmes. Obviously, The Hound of the Baskervilles.
Yes.
Um, the Five Orange Picks. That's a weird
Hmm.
one. The Speckled Band, and a few others like that that I really, really enjoyed. Uh, the Musgrave Ritual. I liked those. And so find that around. And honestly, as I got older, I became more and more interested in sort of the unanswered questions about these characters.
Hmm.
I really became increasingly curious about Mary Watson and about Lestrade and about Mrs. Hudson. And so um, finally, had these notions. Initially, I had the idea of sort of fusing together several different Holmes stories, which is something that's been done several times.
Right.
Uh, but I also didn't want, but ultimately, I didn't want to do that because I've seen that too often. And I also didn't want to deal with Moriarty.
Yeah. But
A little overdone, and besides, I don't think I could come up with a better version.
no, just to get him out of the way, though, really quick. This has just been sitting on my CD case. This is Moriarty from the Sherlock
Ah,
TV series. One of our family's cats is also named Moriarty. We call him the Napoleon of crime sometimes.
oh, it's lovely, lovely.
Yep. Uh,
So
Ironically, our younger kitten Juliet is more of a troublemaker than he is, so
she's a minion.
she's a minion.
Yeah.
And they fight a lot as minion and crime lord are wont
Yeah,
to do.
yeah. The so if I was just, I guess basically some of the really nice Gothic things. I mean, there was the other thing is to try to throw him up against Jack the Ripper, but I don't really like any of those either. I've seen too many.
Yeah.
But throwing him up against Dracula, and I didn't want to do that. I just didn't. I didn't find that. Besides, I've done Dracula. So finally, I decided on a more or less original story, that in some way echoes Hound of the Baskervilles, in
Mm,
that it does take place at a spooky old manor in countryside. Um, I threw in a few other echoes of things like the title, The Whispering Stones, refers to a Neolithic circle of stones. For those of you who don't know, things like Stonehenge are really, there's over 1,000 of them all over the British Isles. They're just all over the place. They're very mysterious. Most most scholars and stuff have no idea what these things are for.
hmm
But I made up my own and did all this lovely research and finally came up with, part of it was coming up with the names, good Holmesian name. That was to
mm,
me very important as part of the feel of it. The things I was most trying to capture was, Sherlock Holmes at his most gothic, but also wondering will we get to see the things that Watson won't talk about?
mm.
Um, uh, because contrary to what Holmes says, actually those stories are very, very Holmes centric. And I just, like he never talks about his wife, almost never. I wonder why. Um, and what would be the most interesting reason for that? But it would appeal to me. Um, I've always wondered more about, Holmes' past before he met Watson.
Yes.
And then the whole aspect of, I have a very dear friend who is firmly of the opinion that Sherlock's correctly self-diagnosed himself in the BBC series, a high-functioning sociopath.
hmm
And I did not agree. I think of Holmes as a broad spectrum savant
Mm.
with autistic tendencies.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I played with having him ace, but I decided that is really a decision to be made by the actor.
That is fair.
Because yes, it's very easy to look at his exterior and assume he is ace, that he seems to have nothing sexual going on at all. On the other hand, what he's incredibly sexual, and he's suppressing it all and pushing it into this other thing,
hmm
or whatever. Or the people said just because he had to fall in love with someone who is his intellectual equal, or he's in love with John, or whatever. I don't care.
Yeah. Asexual identity is a complicated thing too. So it could be ace and still want to do a variety of things. It's complicated.
Yeah, I just the thing is that going with the series that he from the stories that he's someone who thinks he doesn't think he ever wants to marry.
hmm
Um, but he is at least initially in his youth, and I went with the more classic timeline because people actually have worked this out, the timeline of the different
Ah,
stories. In the timeline, this is after he and Watson have been roommates for 10 years. And so they're in their late 30s. Uh, and as opposed to in their early 20s, when I think Holmes had a little bit more habitual misogyny from his society. Um, and so he's someone who, I love it that he respected men and he could respect women.
hmm
In a way, just in that cold, irritating way that he does. And I wanted to see him and John bicker,
mm,
things like that. I wanted to get more about the history of how did he eat Lestrade together. And then I also went through, I reread a whole bunch of the stories, and I remember there was one story that had a villain whom Holmes, this person has not broken the law in this story. I'm not saying who it is, I'm not saying which story it is. But I said, okay, this is a certain character who in the original stories pops up and does not technically break the law. Holmes has the reaction of saying, one day that person will hang. That person's going to the gallows. I mentioned this to some of the members of the cast of Carmilla and said, this is what this person did. And they all went, oh my God. Yep, this radiates. This is a sociopath.
Okay.
Long before that term was coined, but oh my Lord. Notice how I'm not mentioning their gender?
Yes.
So yeah, that's part of it, and that was part of I yeah. So I always want to get into like a little bit behind the curtains of Holmes' past and the stories that Watson were telling, and I was assuming this is going to be one of those stories that's just too much for his audience,
Okay.
and then I went and I found all sorts of fun little names and words and things. I was, looked like looking for place names. I know you were going through it, but have you found yet the definition of the word Meerling?
Hmm.
Someone mentioned, it's Meerling Hall and the town is called Meerlingford.
Yes, I've reached that point in the recording that you sent me. I don't remember what they said the definition was, though.
It's an old Scandinavian legend. A Meerling is, well, you take the Christian or the pagan Jew. The Christian Jew is a child who has died without being baptized.
Right.
The pagan view is a child who has died before they've received a name.
Okay.
Um, and so it's Mirling Hall and Mirlingford because there's a river there.
Okay.
And yes, that I loved the whole idea. It's so spooky and it absolutely dovetails into the whole story.
For sure.
Okay, so yeah. And and lots of details, things like that. And then it might amuse you that I was telling certain people, like I contacted my friend V,
Hmm.
saying I would love for you to play Sherlock Holmes. And V actually recently posted in a wrap up of 2022. Said that until I contacted them, they'd never realized they wanted to play that part, and then realized, oh yes, I do.
I mean, makes sense.
And of course, Akshay, who I just loved, Akshay is an actor I know for quite a
Hmm.
while. I just loved the idea of Dr. Watson being Indian.
Yes.
And then I was telling my friend Emily, when she and her boyfriend were driving me to see her in a play in Oxnard, which is a bit of a hike. So they bring me a lot, so I could review it. Brilliant production. She did a great job. I was telling her a little bit, I'm starting working on this. I've cast a few people, but I haven't cast Mrs. Watson yet. And she just burst into this huge smile and said, "Sure you have." So, and then I cast a few other people as we went along, asking different people,
Hmm.
um, including someone who in my one of my playwriting groups, she was reading the part of
Mm.
Irene Soward, and she just was reading this, and she just said, "David, have you cast this role?" I said, "No, I'm not yet. I would like to put myself up for it." Sure, sure. So this is, by the way, regarding the casting of the reading
Right.
that we did, and that is, by the way, for all of you listening, that's what Martin has been watching in the copious amounts of spare time that a college student has.
Yeah. I'm watching it in little chunks, and it's really engaging. It's just hard to find time.
I understand. I understand. Uh, so yeah, the so yeah, but yeah. So I think that answers all three of your questions.
I think it absolutely does.
Love your hat, by the way.
All right, so Jacques has told us what Orochi is. It's a horror manga anthology series about an enigmatic young woman who alters people's lives. That is intriguing.
I will have to tell V about that.
All right.
V adores manga and Japan, and uh, yeah,
Nice.
and I will try to look it up myself. I don't, I'm not that into manga, but I don't dislike it or anything.
Yeah, I have a few manga on my shelf. Most of them are the manga adaptations of the Legend of Zelda video games, which I read because uh, I just can't finish any of the games myself. They're so time consuming, and I am always like, I'm just wandering aimlessly, like, game, tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. So just reading the story is sometimes easier, or watching someone play it.
Have you seen the web series based on The Legend of Zelda
The web series? No,
with Felicia Day?
I have not.
You need to see this.
That is going on my list
It's
immediately.
about somebody who starts playing The Legend of Zelda and gets sucked into the game.
Oh, that's delightful.
And Felicia Day plays this horny fairy, very horny fairy.
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah.
Excellent. So my friend Sauron Baggins says, my first experience of Sherlock was the 1985 Young Sherlock Holmes movie, followed by a monkey covering its face. So I don't. I've not seen that one.
It's yeah, it's a Steven Spielberg thing. It's kind of it's not bad. It's not bad. I've seen
All
much
right.
worse, much worse. It has a certain charm.
Mm,
But of course, it also completely violates canon.
as do
The
a
whole,
lot of them.
the whole idea that Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson going to school together.
Yeah.
No, they're both teenagers, and that
Right.
Sherlock Holmes never married anyone because he fell in love as a teenager.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, okay, um,
Huh.
yeah. I haven't seen Enola Holmes yet. I intend to.
I haven't seen the second one. The first one is very good.
Uh, so
Uh, yeah, the other thing I did want to ask you about when you were talking about like adaptations that are like Holmes and Jack the Ripper or Holmes versus Dracula, or have you read, it's a Neil Gaiman short story and I think it's called A Study in
yeah,
Yellow?
Skiing and Emerald.
Yes.
Yes, Sherlock Holmes in a world of Cthulhu.
Yep, that one's excellent.
Yes, yes, I agree. That is extremely excellent. Um, I actually rather enjoyed Ewan's Guilty Pleasure Without a Clue
Hmm.
with Michael Caine as Sherlock Holmes.
Which one
Uh,
is that again? I missed I
that's the
missed it.
one that it's Michael Caine as Sherlock Holmes, and the whole point is that Dr. Watson is the genius. Sherlock Holmes is the character he will finally hire. He hires an actor to play the role in public.
Oh, that's great.
And who played Gandhi? Remember? Wonderful actor. That's Dr. Watson.
Okay, okay.
Uh, it's it's not the best film, but it has an odd charm. Um, um, yeah, I thought the Robert Downey Jr. films were charming and silly and fun.
Exactly. Like, yeah, they're popcorn movies and they're good for that.
Absolutely, that's perfect. They're popcorn movies. You get a snack or French fries or whatever your snack
Mhm.
of choice happens to be, and just munch them down while you. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the fact that it's full of really excellent actors, just
Hmm.
chewing the scenery into sawdust.
Hmm. for my promotional little Instagram story yesterday promoting this live stream, I used a little piece of Hans Zimmer music from that movie called
Oh,
Discombobulate. So
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I have made a point of like. I don't know if you ever saw the Gene Wilder film, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes' Smarter Brother.
I have not, but I now very much want to.
Yeah, among others, it's and in it, Sherlock Holmes, the actors who are playing Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson actually both played those roles in two different British TV series.
Interesting.
Uh, yeah, and so, and it maybe I think it's being a little esoteric, but it's also very very funny, and I recommend it. Just kind of weird and wacky, um, with Marty Feldman
Mm,
as his uh, psychic.
that's fun.
Yeah,
That's very fun.
and yeah, and I periodically see these things, lists of the best Sherlock Holmes, and sometimes I just look and go, no, just that's not one of the best. But no, doesn't that
Yeah,
interesting? So, yeah.
which I think leads into Jacques' question really well, which is, what is the worst Sherlock Holmes adaptation you've ever seen?
Count of the Baskervilles with Peter Cook.
Hmm. I don't think I've seen that one.
You are so lucky. I'll never get those 2 hours back. Every time I think about it, I want to use mental floss or brain bleach or something. It was just
Oh, jeez.
terrible, absolutely terrible. Um, yeah, it's awful. It's
Yep.
just yeah, yeah, the worst Sherlock Holmes. Yeah,
Is it just like really dull or what?
it's
What is it?
dull. The humor is bad. It's not funny.
Okay.
Um, I got the impression this is somebody thought this would be a good idea and just forked over some money. And Peter Cook said, "Got a mortgage payment, okay." Yeah, and yeah, and it's just yeah. Maybe it's just because I don't like this
Yeah,
particular style of humor.
which is fair.
But I just think it was terrible. It was terrible. Um, I've seen some others I thought were just. That was the
Yeah.
one I really actively disliked. Didn't want to see it again. I
Hmm.
am kind of unusual in that I'm not overly fond of the Basil Rathbone
Interesting. I
for a reason.
okay.
I hate what they do with that results.
Okay.
I
That is fair actually.
Yeah,
I
because
just love Rathbone as an actor, so
sure, he's a very fine actor. I think particularly in the first two Holmes films that are set in the Victorian era,
mhm.
he's just he's in his element. Um, but in that series of films, Dr. Watson is not Sherlock Holmes' friend.
Mm.
He's the man's pet. And I can't believe this man's a doctor. He's too stupid.
That no, that's fair. They really do they do play that up for sure.
Somebody in my playwriting group, as I was showing them scenes from the Whispering Stones, one person complained saying, why can't you make Watson Bumblings? Because he isn't.
Right.
I said, I wrote the story just there. He goes, no, he isn't. He isn't bumbling. Yeah. Um, yeah, he's a very, very smart person. And towards the end, you start getting stories where he doesn't even where Holmes just dazzles somebody with, I've noticed all this, and this about you. And, Watson says, I used to be amazed by things like that, but of course now I notice this, and this. And he can do it now too.
Yeah,
It's not as well.
right.
Um, and and then yeah. Oh, by the way, I was going to mention one of my favorites. Uh, they might be giants.
Mm,
Okay, George C. Scott plays a man who is deluded. He thinks he's Sherlock Holmes in 1970s New York. So the family hires a psychologist to come and commit him, played by Joanna Woodward. Her name is Dr. Mildred Watson.
okay. Okay.
You have to see this film.
I have to see this.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. So,
Yep.
just that everyone see that film. See that film. I think you can find it on YouTube. Just do
I
it.
I will be looking that up alongside that Legend of Zelda web series
Mhm.
after this. Uh, Jacques' worst is Tom and Jerry Meet Sherlock Holmes, which I didn't
Well,
know existed.
you may have won. I haven't seen it either. Um, do I want to?
I don't know. I
I think I might take Jock. I may simply take your word for it. I'm just gonna.
yep. Sitting on the DVD shelf downstairs somewhere, still debating whether to get rid of it or not, is Tom and Jerry and the Wizard of Oz, which is literally a cartoon version of the 1930s Wizard of Oz movie with Tom and Jerry inserted into it. Same songs, same characters, same progression of events, but Tom and Jerry just kind of go off into the woods and do their own thing. And at some point, it's so strange.
Doesn't seem like it would work.
It doesn't. It doesn't work. Uh, and they did it with Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory too, except Tom and Jerry uh, take their own little boat down the tunnel ride, and a mouse verbatim gives them the horrific Willy Wonka tunnel ride speech. It's so weird.
Uh, that does sound weird.
It's so strange.
Uh, it's only a matter of time before they do shit, go to the rooms. Anyway,
And Jacques is saying that the animation in Tom and Jerry Meet Sherlock Holmes looks cursed. So I'm just scared.
uh,
Uh, I will look up some screenshots at the very least just to see what I might get myself into watching that. But
uh,
yeah,
Did you share those at the Shadows on the Air Facebook page? That would be so great.
sure.
Thank you. Um,
So now that we've gone down that rabbit hole of bizarre takes on Holmes,
mhm.
my second question was going to be sort of uh, you're still in a similar vein of the Gothic to what you did with Carmilla for Shadows on the Air, but you are very much writing a mystery, and I feel like there's a lot of more specific things in terms of like information that you have to withhold in order for a mystery to work.
Mhm.
Uh, what do you find especially challenging or rewarding about writing a mystery story, and how does that differ from writing other things that you've done?
Well, it's twofold. First part wasn't too difficult, which was basically coming up with a suitably a good number of red herrings, or perhaps one huge red herring, to
Hmm.
distract the audience away from the solution. The other thing that really stuck in my head was once I figured out I knew who, I knew who the killer was. I knew how the murder was done. I knew why the killer was done. But then, because I'd set it up that the murderer is not incompetent, then the question comes up: how does Holmes solve the murder? You have to find the clues. You have to
Yeah.
insert or create or find organically a form of clue that would lead Sherlock Holmes to the solution. This was made slightly easier because it was in an age prior to modern police work.
Yes.
That makes it easier. I mean, they didn't even look for fingerprints. Um, but then once I figured out how Holmes figures out who did it, that's not enough. Holmes then has to prove they did, and then go into that. That was when, as I just looked at the Holmes stories, I found that the thing he usually does, and I think this is what he often does, is if he can't prove the criminal is guilty, he sets them up.
Mm,
He sets a trap to trick them into committing a crime again or trying to.
right.
And here's fair. Holmes does usually try, if this is right, if he can arrange that this is another attempted murder, he's going to try to put the uh, target, as it were, onto himself, if at all possible. Um, so I worked out that. That was the thing. I was listening to figuring how is he going to, how does he know who the killer is? How does he catch the killer? Or how does he prove the killer is the killer? Which involves him, so how does he travel? Interestingly enough, again, someone in my writing group was complaining, saying, well, why isn't Holmes just getting everyone together in the drawing room and just telling everyone, explaining who the killer is? Now it just becomes Holmes never does that.
Right.
That's Poirot.
Yeah.
And I will admit, this play is a bit, the whole story is a little bit of a hybrid between Conan Doyle murder mystery and Agatha Christie
Yeah.
murder mystery.
Yeah.
Because in the sense that it's, the background characters have their own stories,
Yes. Yes.
and that's much more of the case and than there is usually in Sherlock Holmes. And so that's the one concession to Agatha Christie. Yeah, I think Agatha Christie's great, but that's not. But I was trying to write a Sherlock Holmes
Right.
novel.
Right.
Yeah, and so that was the trick. The other thing was that I suppose was integrating all the character stuff that I wanted to within it. I'm still working on that. I don't think the draft that you're seeing in bits and pieces quite succeeds. And I see several little things I want to change. And certain aspects of character. My process, I think I've mentioned this to you, is as I write it, I discover lots of things about the characters that I didn't know.
Yes. Yes.
And then I have to go back and reintegrate all that
For
into the
sure.
text. Um, and certain things that are just kind of quite interesting. I look forward to your feedback on the solution and what happened.
Yes. I'm excited.
By the way, there are four non-binary members of the cast in that one, by the way.
Oh, excellent.
None of the characters are non-binary, but
Right.
four of the cast are.
That's awesome.
Okay, I'm going to bitch about something just slightly because I want to get it off my chest.
Get it out of there.
There's an actor who did a very, very good job. We had no rehearsal for this, by the way. They're all good
Mhm.
actors, I said. I gave them a few notes beforehand. I said, my attitude also was, if you have, if you feel confident doing an English accent, you go right ahead. And if you don't, you can fake it, or you can just try to have a non-regional accent. Whatever you find.
Hmm.
One of the characters did a spot-on correct accent that was totally wrong because the character is posh. You know, they're a member of the gentry, and so why are they speaking in this working class London accent?
Mm.
I was awfully puzzled by that. So
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
but they did it very well.
Yes, yes. And it may have been that was the accent that they knew how to do.
Maybe. I mean, that's perfectly possible. Or this is their sense of this is a sense of humor there. I don't know,
Mhm. Yeah.
but whatever. It's just this one little odd thing. They did a very very good job of acting.
Okay.
It was just that here was this accent, and I wasn't going to stop everything. I said, "It's wrong." Yeah, I thought that. So that's part of what's going on there.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I wish I could have gotten the type.
Yeah.
Do you notice at one point they actually held as if they almost mimed as if they had a pipe in their mouth?
I don't know if I've caught that,
Yeah,
but that makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah.
We've kind of touched on it already, but that does kind of lead into what my third question was, which was for that reading, like you've answered this in part already, but what was the casting process, and if you were writing any of these characters with people in mind for them, whether that is someone who you knew or just some other actor to help you sort of find the voice for the character.
I did not write with these actors in mind. Some of them I didn't cast until after it was written.
Okay.
Um, these are among actors I know,
Hmm.
basically one way or another. One of them was just in a play that I went and I met. I know most of the members of the theater company. This person is in that theater company. I hadn't met them before. I was chatting. I thought they had the right feel for a certain character, so I asked them if they'd be interested, and I said, yeah. Which is always nice to hear. I was not writing with any of these particular actors in mind, even the ones I thought, okay, I would like to see them play this part.
Right.
I did slightly uh, begin by using Jeremy Brett's Sherlock Holmes as a starting point.
Okay.
And I realized I was also using a little bit of the Sherlock Watson, a little bit, as the
Yes.
template for him, just a little bit. Um, a little bit. And then I was trying very, very deliberately to make Lestrade like lower class, because he's the working class, Bill Smith. Um, Watson, I feel, is very much middle class and gentry. That's
Hmm.
explicit. Um, and things like that. I think I do think that as I go through, I want to make Sir Michael a bit more marble in the mouth. Very, it's sort of,
Yeah.
well, the thing is, use words like extraordinary more often.
Hmm.
Uh, the actor doing it one time, just when I said the character going, well, I tried to do, oh, things are busy, what? Things like, and things a little bit more,
Yeah.
squireisms
Yes. Yes.
that and things like that. It's just, I do think Mrs. Blunt, I think, should be Scottish. I think it would just be better, be more fun. If
that
she was
yeah,
speaking in a Scottish brogue, yes, it would be a lot more fun and would sound better as an
yeah,
audio.
I can see that or hear that.
Mhm. But yeah, that's just so. I think that answers your question. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does too. Uh, Jacques, in regards to accents, says that when I try sounding posh, I end up with mid-Atlantic. So I don't know what that
Close enough.
is.
Mid-Atlantic is this kind of speech that, for example, I was trained in.
Hmm.
Is the idea is you're supposed to speak English with no regional dialect at all,
Oh,
and it's for example with Vincent Price book.
yes. That funny you say that. Actually, I am wearing a Vincent Price patterned vest right now.
Oh, I couldn't quite make that out.
Yep, that's
That's so
all Vincent
fantastic.
Price's head with some bats behind it. My bow
Oh,
tie
how
has the same
fun!
pattern.
How glorious! He used to. I saw him in an interview once, and he was talking to people who would come to him all the time and ask, "What part of England are you from?"
Mm.
And so he would reply in as posh an accent as he could, Missouri. He also said people would come up and ask for his autograph, and whatever name they wanted, he'd sign.
Great.
Basil Rathbone, sure. Yeah, why not? And things like that. So he would do that. So yeah, but I mean, and I've gotten that. I've got that reaction of people assuming I'm not from the United States
Mm.
because they assume because that's what Mid-Atlantic is. It's that attempt to rid your speech of all regional accents. So if
Okay.
you're basically pronouncing things in an American way, you're at the West Mid-Atlantic, and if you're pronouncing things in the English way, you're in the East Mid-Atlantic.
Okay.
Kind of.
I don't think we have any other questions from the chat yet, but and again, this is something we've sort of touched on a little bit already, but in terms of not so much accent, but just dialogue, I mean, there's obviously a distinct sort of period and style to the speech in this and in everything I've seen from you. Of course, that varies from whether you're doing Carmilla or Dracula or something with an even earlier style to it.
Mhm.
So uh, I find that when I write occasionally, because I am trying to write a novel, I will give myself this like third world fantasy setting that's supposed to have a very sort of antiquated speech style, but then I'll start having the characters just talk like I do every day and just immediately break what I've established for myself. So, uh, how do you sort of find the voice for your characters and how do you keep that consistent?
Oh, what an excellent question. That is so true. Yeah, yeah, spent so many years working on that.
Hmm.
And part of that is to imagine what they're wearing.
Mm.
And just also external, like what they're wearing and why. Like my LGBTQ bedroom farce of the Sea
Yes.
Griffins. One of the things I imagined was that the two male leads, one of them is a dandy, and the other is what in Regency times was called a buck. So we're basically, one of them is basically wearing, lace and lots of jewelry and beautifully patterned brocades and all this. And the other one is probably he's a country guy who's just showing off how his muscles are, or it's a very different sort of thing. And they talk to each other in, thinking that that alters.
Hmm.
Likewise, Sir Roger, I imagine, has been talking in like this, a bit like a steamroller, things like that. Um, how intelligent is the character? What's their attitude towards others? Mrs. Blunt in Whispering Stones, you can see how, basically her nose is stuck way up in
Yes.
there. And it's that basically that it's a whole, like for Dracula. Of course, if you're dealing with someone who is terribly, terribly traumatized and is like Renfield, they'll come across as very, very different from Renfield's attendant,
Right.
who is nevertheless who is working class, not like Lucy, who is posh. On the other hand, Nina is middle class, lower middle class, trying to sound posh.
Yes.
Okay. At the same time, like I was very much thinking like Jonathan Harker in my head would have a Yorkshire accent, and things like that. It's working on accents certainly it helps a bit. If you can find, I'm always looking for some little thing that particular will give me an in. Particular certain patterns. Like, for example, I don't know if you notice, Watson has a tendency to begin changes of subjects with things like, well, shall we? If I may. Yes,
Yeah.
he politely tries to redirect conversation in the
Okay.
direction.
Yes.
Yeah, except when he starts losing his patience. And then he'll be saying, yes, I had noticed that you're changing the subject every time I bring that up. Things like that. Um, and it's, of course, for Holmes, we're dealing with the way he was actually written, which is he has that somewhat odd way. Also, it's another thing that I sometimes do is I will find if I can find a particular pattern of how someone talks, of how they approach conversation, it's very, very helpful. How polite are they? And what shape is their politeness take? And who are they rude with? And what is their rudeness? Are they arrogant? And if they are arrogant, how are they holding that? It's did I send you the Dark Swans?
Uh, I was there for the live
Okay,
reading of the
cool.
Dark Swans, which was great.
Okay, well, I mean, part of all that was, for example, several people said that one of the characters they kept, you can probably figure out who. Some people said that he's you, isn't he? Because he talked very much like me.
Mm.
And when I had a line I've been writing, 20 years to say, so I looked and I said, they're all. But I mean, it seems like Richard obviously has he's got defenses,
Hmm.
and his defenses are a sharp wit that's putting up with no nonsense at all. Unless he's talking to Deirdre, then he has no defenses around her at all. He drops all his defenses. He listens politely, wonderfully, enraptured, completely engaging in whatever she says. Um, that he's silent around Deidre's mother until she crosses the line, and then just oh, he whips out that razor blade's
Yeah.
tongue and just slices her to the bone.
Yes.
Um, Deidre was fascinating throughout because, of course, she's on the autism spectrum, and I'm not. So what I did was, other than watch a whole bunch of videos of women on YouTube who were on the autism spectrum, although we didn't get that much in terms of her speech. But
Right.
what I felt was I really began by saying I took some of the more socially awkward tendencies I myself have and crank them up to 11. And then realize, okay, she's a musician. This is a room. Like, one of the first things she does when we meet her is she walks into a room and she's never been in there before. She does this. Nice. Because she's testing the sound.
Yeah.
um, and that she has, and the way she listens to people and how she reacts to their words. Like says, like when you remember early on when someone says, well, "What do you call just?" Oh, that's the original actress who played the luthier decided to do her my Margaret Rutherford, and ever since then I just suddenly go, "Well, you said," and so what do you call the day before Christmas Eve? Before Halloween? Halloween? All Hallows Eve? Eve?
Hmm.
And she looks and goes, Thursday? Because it's Thursday.
Right.
It's things like that. Between the two sisters, their speech is very similar, but one of them is kind of her instinct is to punch,
Yes.
and the other one, her most basic instinct is to be diplomatic but put her foot down when she needs to.
Hmm.
Um, and again, what's going on at the given moment? When Salem, is suffering from very low blood sugar and she's having hallucinations. Well, that's going to sound way different.
Yes.
um, and it's all in its specificity. Um, what kind of sentence structure are they likely to use? Um, uh, and what is the attitude that comes behind it? Sherlock Holmes has an attitude basically they're almost always talking down to everyone and has
Yeah.
a wicked sardonic sense of humor. It's just waiting for people to be caught. Like there will actually be a moment in the play, but like the way Holmes does of saying, well, we'll be leaving soon anyway, all five of us. There's four of us. But your back is to the window. Just, yes, and there's a knock on the door, and Mary's just saying, that's very impressive for all. It's also very irritating.
I loved that.
And I always say it was a lovely touch between Mary and John, is that John simply says, oh, he knows. He knows.
That was great.
So it's just, it's the more specific you know the character, the more specific their voice will happen. And the thing is, the more specific you try to make their voice, suddenly the more specific they will become.
Yes.
It's six of one, half dozen of the other. It's just happening simultaneously. And part of it is like, do they speak in a staccato, kind of punching way? Uh, or is there speech much more akin to maybe what you expect to see in, say, a piece of music by Bach or something like that? If you imagine their voice is a flute versus their voice is guitar,
Yes.
um, any things like that, you can imagine what type of animal are they? Are they an owl or are they a cat or are they a dog? Are they a puppy? Are they a dachshund or are they a sheepdog? Uh, there are 1,000 different ways to look at that. And you can also then start thinking, as well, no. Like, and honestly, one of the things I looked at, and he's even mentioned in the Dark Swans, Richard is a Cancer.
Mm.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
Cancer.
Yep. I've got a little Pisces candle
Okay,
that I got for
okay,
Christmas sitting up here,
good.
so for
Yeah,
whatever that's worth.
yeah. So that's another way of looking at it. And if
Yeah.
you don't, and if the astrological signs don't make sense to you, make up your own.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think of it. I had to consciously make myself say that Richard was a Cancer because, to my mind, I don't think of Cancer the crab as that personality archetype. I think of him as a turtle.
Interesting.
Or look at the tarot cards and decide, well, you know, this person's the Page of Swords
Hmm.
versus the Queen of Cups. whatever. The 1,001 ways that just suggests a way to rhythmically change and make them what they
Yeah.
were like. Well,
I
you can also cast a well-known actor in your own head.
yes. Yes.
You know, that's some actor you're really, really familiar with and seeing how to imagine how they would do this.
Hmm.
And it was, that's another one. There's so many ways of doing
Yep.
it. And once you really start thinking about how many ways there are, you find more. You find a bunch that work for you, and you mix and match and combine.
Hmm.
That was a great question. I love technical questions like that.
Thank you. Uh,
Bravo.
and since you mentioned tarot cards, it's really funny that you say that because that's something that I actually did in the plot of one of the story that I'm currently writing. I just
Ooh,
had the
cool, cool,
characters
cool.
stop off at a tavern in the middle, and someone there gave them a tarot reading, and I sort of cut between perspectives of each reading, so you get the first card of the first person, the middle card of the person, and the last card of the last
Ah,
person.
okay.
So each one says a little thing about each of them. So that just picking a card that would suit each of
Hmm.
them in that moment of time
I
was
I did that once for
yeah,
a show, and what I found was use the shortest spread you possibly can because it's way more interesting to me than it was to
yeah,
them.
yeah,
Just word of warning, word of warning.
yep.
But yeah, so that.
Hmm. And
Whatever it works.
yeah, and just while we're on the subject of tarot cards, I do just want to show something off that I got for Christmas really quickly. I will get up for just a second.
Hello, soulless trench coat.
Yes, hello. So this is the Tarot del Toro.
Okay.
It is a tarot deck based on the movies of Guillermo del Toro. It has a written forward by him and really beautiful engraved uh, illustrations. This your image is
That sounds
frozen on the
great.
screen, David.
Yeah, yeah, I recognize that. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, so my internet's acting up a little bit. Sorry about
Yeah.
that.
But yeah, so just as an example, this is the Queen of Blades or Swords, and she's a vampire from the strain.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I just thought that was really cool because it's all based on his characters, and he, as the creator of a lot of those characters, actually had input into which characters were what.
Cool. That is so cool.
Thank you. Uh, Jacques is recommending the comedy series The Vampire Dies in No Time, which has the most bizarre attempt at Lugosi's accent that Jacques has ever heard. So I will have to look at. Oh no! Oh no! I will have to look into that. I think we just lost David. I hope we can get him back. Do In the meantime, I need to read a lot more Shirley Jackson, Jacques. Uh, I love Haunting of Hill House, obviously, but I need to read stuff like The Lottery, and I have not read Hangs a Man, so. And no one's watching anyway. Plays a major role in the book. Cool. Oh, you're still here. Cool. Yeah, it just registered as nobody watching there for like 2 seconds, and I couldn't tell you why. Uh, but yeah, I'm glad you're still here, Jacques. We are working this out right at the moment. Don't go anywhere. All one of you. But yeah, I've been really enjoying this conversation so far, and I am hopefully excited to continue this conversation for a second. Blah, 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 blah. I do recommend Ancient Magus Bride if you enjoy folklore from Europe. I do enjoy folklore from Europe, so I may have to look into that. Uh, what is Ancient Magus Bride? Is it a film? Is it a book? Is it a game? What is it? A series from 2017. Anime. Okay, cool. Uh, what is the plot sort of premise, and where might I be able to find it? I'm just sitting here wiggling my hands around until David comes back. Orphaned girl becomes a mage assistant to a mystical being. Cool. Hey, Cody. I'm glad you stopped by. We are currently trying to get our guest David back. Although I think we just got him because the internet had booted him before. Hello.
Hello.
Glad we got you back.
Likewise.
Jacques has just been recommending us an anime based on European folklore, and my friend Cody just showed up, and I'm glad he's here. He's a big H.P. Lovecraft enthusiast.
Cool. Sooner or later, I would like to do a Lovecraft story one of these days.
Awesome.
Thank you, Jacques.
Uh,
I think I told you, I have, after Whispering Stones, there's Princess of Shadows, which is about Elizabeth Bathory.
yes.
And then after that, I have this idea for something that is tentatively called Things Happen at Our Point. Okay. I mentioned it very briefly at World Dracula Congress
Okay.
afterwards, and several people said, "Sold. Just take my money. Take my money." And it was simply, it's a story about a lesbian werewolf
Ooh.
and a ghost ship on the Great Lakes.
Sold.
Okay. Yeah. And I recently realized I have a seed of a play to write that I won't do until next year at the very earliest, maybe the year after that. It's going to take some while to figure out exactly what this is going to turn into.
Right.
But yeah. Um, it's a shame you're not in LA because I know my theater company that I belong to, Fierce Background,
Mm-hmm.
is going to do a live reading of the play I wrote sometime in the next couple of months.
Yeah. I wish.
This is it's about, as I toot my own horn here, I think I may have mentioned this too. It's about the meeting of two married couples who, as far as I know, never met.
Mm.
Or they could have been bowling buddies. I don't know. But I think it would have been very, very interesting for them to meet. These are some real people, and the big thing about it is, I assume you know who Robert Lincoln was.
I think so.
Yeah, he was the son of Abraham Lincoln,
Yes.
the only surviving child. And in 1881, which is almost 20 years after the Civil War, he was Secretary of War to President James Garfield. Uh, and as it happened, he was seeing President Garfield off on some thing that he was off to do at the train station in Washington, D.C., when a man named Charles Guiteau walked up to the president, pulled out a pistol, and emptied it into his chest. So the second president of the United States ever to be assassinated was assassinated in front of Robert Lincoln. And part of one reason is, who can Robert Lincoln talk to about that? Well, here's someone. You ever heard of Henry Rathbone? And I certainly you haven't.
I don't think so.
So Henry Rathbone was a Union officer during the Civil War. His fiancee was the daughter of a junior senator from New York, who befriended Mary Lincoln, i.e., President Lincoln's wife, and First Lady Robert's mother. And so, because they liked these young people, the Lincolns invited them to come with them to the theater that night. So they were there when John Wilkes Booth shot president.
Right.
In fact, Henry Rathbone tackled John Wilkes Booth, who pulled out
Oh,
a bayonet, cut Rathbone elbow to the armpit, to the bone. He almost bled to death, but he did manage to grab um, John Wilkes Booth's ankle as he went over the presidential box to land on stage and set off his bones so that John Wilkes Booth broke his leg when he landed. And that's a big reason why John Wilkes Booth was ultimately caught. Um, Henry Rathbone never forgave himself for failing to save Abraham Lincoln. But this is someone Robert Lincoln could, in theory, talk to about being present at a presidential assassination. So I just thought it'd be fascinating to find out what would happen if these two met.
yes.
And their wives. Their wives are very interesting people also. Um, so the play it's a one-act play. It's an hour-long play, and it's called Here in the Parlor of Songs. So, and that they'll be doing a reading of that sometime in the next couple of months live
All right.
in Santa Monica. So
It sounds really cool, and I'm sad that I can't be there.
yeah, I understand. Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's really fun to see it. It'll be really great to see it live.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So blah 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 blah. That's what that's about now. So yeah. Also in terms of scheduling, basically what I think I've said it earlier, I'm in the process of making some changes, edits to the Whispering Stones,
Hmm.
and I hope in February to have auditions. And then uh, I'm a better director now. I'm more experienced, so I'm hoping to get it done. I may be using a lot of the same actors.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, by the way, you haven't seen it all, but V just did a fantastic job, especially since we had no rehearsal. I just gave
Right.
him a few notes, and V just grabbed on to certain things so well, so good.
What I've seen of their performance so far, it's just,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
oh yeah, yeah. Um, and part of it is, can't you tell V this that intelligence radiating out of their eyes?
Yes.
You see they're taking in everything, and uh, that poor squirrel is just running at warp speed. And that wheel
Yeah.
inside their head. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, and so yeah, it's really. I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased. V
Yes.
is but V always does an amazing job. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to know just how thrilled they were, even with the idea of playing Sherlock Holmes.
Hmm.
So, okay, we'll see if they're available
Yeah,
because it would be great. It would be great.
for sure.
Stuff like that. So, do you have any other questions you were going to ask me?
Uh, I have one other set question. My final question was going to be more uh favorite versions and adaptations of Sherlock Holmes, but we kind of covered that at the beginning of this
Hmm.
exhaustively.
A little bit, yeah, yeah.
But wearing the vest I'm wearing right now, I did just wonder, are you familiar with or are you a fan of The Great Mouse Detective?
Yes,
Yeah.
I knew you were going with that the second you mentioned this. Yeah,
Yep.
I belong to a couple of. I've been doing research about Sherlock Holmes, and there's actually a couple of groups like meet once a month on Zoom. And one of the first times we're getting together over in Europe, so let's talk about Moriarty.
Hmm.
Who's our favorite
Yeah.
Actually, I said Prince Radigan is one of my favorites. He's just so delicious. He's
He's
just evil. He's just
yes.
deliciously evil in a way that is like Captain Hook. uh, I I did write a play a couple of years ago. It needs rework. I hope to rework it this year. It needs to be fixed. It's a superhero play
Mm,
called Capes and Consequences. And initially, it started as a like 20-minute spoof of superhero plays, of superhero stories. I'm of the opinion that the best spoofs and parodies are done from love.
oh, absolutely. If you
Uh,
aren't loving the thing you're
yeah,
parodying it, you don't really understand what you're making fun of.
Young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
What we do in the shadows.
Yes.
Um, Galaxy Quest.
Mm,
These are wonderful.
yes. I
Yeah.
actually have the novelization of Galaxy Quest sitting
Oh
in a
my
pile of
God.
books over
Yes.
here somewhere.
Yeah. I still regard that as the best Star Trek movie ever made.
Yes.
The but so Capes and Consequences. When I expanded it, and it really was 20 minutes, and I wanted to expand it because someone pointed out it's, it's got a relatively large cast for such a short play, and everyone has these elaborate costume requirements. Even though I don't particularly mention what they're wearing,
Hmm.
but you know people are going to want to dress them up as superheroes.
Of
They're
course.
stars. And So I said, yeah, I probably should expand it. And initially, the initiative it's a 20-minute play. It's about the attempt by, there's an all-male superhero team, and the first female superhero who manages to get in.
Hmm.
It's a process of how she does her life. But if we're going to do that, then we need some sort of big menace that the team has to confront.
Right.
And um, all throughout, I've had people mentioning is so and so. The question kept coming up. Um, I think it was something like, wait a minute, or periodically stopping, and someone new comes in and they say, "I've got news." And the first thing they say, "Well, Ulysses Smith is still in prison, right?"
Hmm.
Oh yeah. Okay, thanks. And I thought, what? I was like, every time this is a running gag that people are increasingly terrified. And finally, the last character that comes on is a god. He's an Aztec god. One of the things he says is, "Oh, is Ulysses Smith yet in prison?" Definitely. That's good. um, but you'll like them because they don't have a natural shape,
Mm,
so they're not human at all. They just take on a human shape because they're visiting. Um,
right.
they don't have any of our neuroses. Um, so I just one of my favorite characters. But anyway, the whole point was that I said, okay, so this person has to be really supervillain. And then I was trying to think, okay, what kind of supervillain? All the villains I've seen, who scared me the most? And I started thinking, who scared me? John Doe in Seven,
Mm,
Moriarty in Sherlock, the Master
yes.
in Doctor Who, Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah.
The character ended up female, by the way.
Okay.
Uh, she and her fraternal twin sister were named Marie and Antoinette. Isn't that a wonderfully cheesy superhero
Oh,
thing?
that's so fun.
Yeah. So instead, now for that whole scene, they were asking, but Antoinette Pale hasn't escaped yet. Like, no. Okay. Yeah, the whole point is we find out in the very first scene. Yeah, she already
Yeah. Yeah.
escaped. Yeah, and that I just started making her like the most terrifying aspects of those characters. But she's smarter than anything. She's brilliant, and she just doesn't care
Right.
about anything, and she's bored.
Oh, that's the scariest.
Worse, she hasn't yet figured out anything that really entertains her. It's a constant search for something to amuse or entertain her, and it's been a failure for her entire life.
Hmm.
So, Jesus Christ, what will she come up with? So, that was
Fun.
interesting. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was actually fun. So, yeah. So, anyway, I figured out how to fix that. There was a problem with the plan. I figured out how to fix it. So, hopefully it might fix that this year. Hopefully. She'll think it'll be a fun.
Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, that she did dovetail back into Sherlock Holmes. See?
It did. It
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 did. It
it took
did.
a little journey, but it came back.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, yeah. So, yeah, I was thinking. So yeah, we've already talked about my favorite and least favorite Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah,
And
we have.
if I prefer to focus on my favorites, I do want to see that Japanese
Yeah, that one looks really interesting.
one. Yeah.
And I will look up
Did
those.
you hear what? Did you hear why they can't ever do any more episodes?
No.
So the actress who played Sherlock, she killed herself.
Oh no.
And the little clips I've seen, I said, "Oh my God, what an intense person!
Mm,
Just radiating just this intensity." Evidently, yeah, she, yeah, that was real.
yeah.
Yeah. Hope I don't spoil it for you. I enjoyed it.
I don't think it will. I mean that's heartbreaking, obviously,
Yeah.
but I think I will still be able to appreciate it for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Magnificent performance.
Hmm.
And yeah, I yeah, I mean, I did something recently where we were being asked questions about this thing about the Zoom thing meets once a month, and they did
Hmm.
a quick thing, a survey, just asking us all to get there and ask questions, a few questions about John Watson. And I already dovetailed into it, but most of it was like, who's your favorite Watson? It was not
Hmm.
Dr. Mildred Watson, they might be giants.
Hmm.
And but the essay is, who would you like to see play Watson?
Mm.
And I said, that kind of really depends on how we're going to approach it. Because when I thought about it, I was thinking about it, I did have an answer, and then someone else made a suggestion. Someone I'd mentioned it to, and they made a really good suggestion. But I feel very strongly that in the second one, it's about that would be a reimagination to the modern era,
Hmm.
possibly, um, in some way. But my initial choice would be Daniel Radcliffe.
I can see that. I can definitely see that.
My friend Mads came up with that. Elliot Page.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can tell that he can absolutely do the part. Understand because of this, but the persona and stuff. I think that would be an interesting reimagination. I'm not saying it's not about making Watson non-binary or anything. It's to have Watson be this interesting young American, physically on the frail side, but with this interesting kind of stylish dignity. That's
You're right.
yeah. Elliot Page has. Um,
Yes, yes.
and that's kind of counter to what we usually expect from Sherlock Holmes. But on the other hand, I'd love to see what would happen if someone
Hmm.
decided to go there. It's almost like you would expect to see Elliot Page play Holmes instead.
I think Elliot Page's Watson is perfect. I don't know why, but that's perfect.
Yeah, something about that whole idea seems wonderful. Absolutely seems wonderful. Yeah, but it would have to be a reimagined. For the reasons I mentioned, I think it has to
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah. It
reimagined.
would be a different take for sure.
Yeah, one I'd like to see. You know,
Hmm.
that would
I'm
be.
just trying to think who he would play opposite of, as who would play Holmes to Elliot Page's Watson.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's another one. Is
Yeah,
that how would you go about this?
yeah,
It
yeah.
the young man who playing Doom.
Hmm. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Have you seen Doom?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Yeah, guy playing Paul.
Maybe, maybe.
That'd be a possibility. Because I would want someone younger to be the opposite. Elliot Page certainly comes across as quite young still.
Hmm.
So we're talking about a very young Holmes. And
Yes.
I don't want there to be much of an age disparity.
No, no, no.
And of course, actually, when you look at you carefully look at the age disparity is not. If there is a disparity, Watson is the older one.
Right.
Watson is a few years older than him. So it's kind of yeah, it's interesting. I just thought of another possibility, but that's a
Oh,
really okay. Just let's go with a completely wild and
okay.
out of left field for Sherlock Holmes. Jenny Ortega.
That is completely off the wall, but now I really, really want to see it. That would just be so much fun.
Yeah, yeah. And nobody will give me the millions of dollars to put it on.
No.
Just
I
for
mean,
them.
hard to say. Yeah. I mean, if the circumstances were right there, I know there are purists out there who would just be
Oh
absolutely
yeah, so
having a meltdown, and then on the other side, people who
yeah.
would just
But they're gonna
absolutely
the
eating it
purists.
up.
But the purists are gonna hate my
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, of course.
Look at my past. um, hmm. I'm actually thinking, by the way, if maybe in 2024, the show
Hmm.
is on the air, I might remount as an audio drama, The Wings of Dracula, because I figure there might be a gap.
Mm, that could be
Then
fun.
I might ask Lee to play Dracula.
Okay,
They like that.
as they should.
That's kind of like, yeah. Which one is it? Cher would be a fascinating.
Mm,
There was a little while where she was being discussed as a possible choice to play Louis in Interview with the Vampire.
oh, and I remember hearing about that.
Yeah,
That
a
would have been.
study. I think, yeah, Jacques, a study in Scarlet is to me is very very interesting because it's such a proto Sherlock Holmes story. It's the one, of course, from Sherlock and um, Watson are getting to know each other for the first time. And in some ways, I think the best version of Study in Scarlet, and I've seen different versions of it, Although I think most people like to do the Son of 4 because it seems like a more mature story. But I
Hmm.
do think that the one for Sherlock, A Study in Pink, was probably the best adaptation of it.
It's a very good episode.
Yeah. Uh, oh, by the way, I thought you would be amused by this. There is this wonderful girl in Florida who has a reaction YouTube channel.
Yes.
And she's in college and she's studying like psychology and things like that.
Hmm.
And she's very, very fun and very good. And she will, when she's doing reactions, most of the time she stops to have a comment.
Yeah.
Or she'll make a quick comment. It's often very, very insightful. And one of the things she said when she was watching, and the thing is, she's thoroughly immersed in the MCU. She was, she almost knows nothing about the DC heroes at all. But
Right.
people insisted, see the Batman, see the Batman, see the Batman. She knew almost nothing about the Batman. And
Hmm.
watching her, it's very interesting to see how she picked up on certain things. But one of the things she did, she started calling Commissioner Gordon Lestrade. But she actually pretty much said, "This is the Sherlock pilot."
Oh my God.
And yeah, I can certainly see where she's coming from. And it's very interesting how she had these little interesting insights. Like at one point, she was just watching and saying about Bruce Wayne, saying, "This guy is not afraid of anything.
Hmm.
That means he's depressed."
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Especially in that movie, that Batman
Oh
is
God,
not.
yes, that's the one that's totally about Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Who's finally the lead. Uh,
Yeah.
even the magnificent version of the Riddler, Penguin, and Catwoman that they have is not upstage Bruce Wayne.
No, absolutely.
But it's just, and she had these interesting little insights. And those are how she was, yeah, she was getting certain things and how totally she became emotionally wrapped up. And at one point saying, "Oh my God," it's just towards the end, she was going, "Are you alone? You're the only superhero Gotham City has? Oh my God, you're all alone." And I thought, what an interesting kind of thing she has this wonderful insight. And her reaction to Werewolf by Night was just gorgeous.
Mm. I still need to watch that. I need to
Oh,
watch
okay.
that so
I'll tell you
badly.
her most basic thing. Her most basic said, "I've known these people for 40 minutes. I need them in my lives
Hmm.
now." So, yeah, and she's just, yeah. And her reaction to Wednesday was also a lot of fun.
Ooh.
One of which was her going, "You've seen it, right? You've seen Wednesday, as I recall, yes?"
Yes.
Yeah. But one of the things she said was she instantly started saying that, "Who asked you this triangle here? Not Wednesday, I'll bet." And I said that obvious, and said, "Wow, this, first of all, she fell in love with Enid.
Yes.
Absolutely fell in love with her. And then also did this other thing going, wait a minute, Enid's interested in a boy." And she just said, "But you're," and then she's bi. And he kept saying, "Well, look at her hair. Of course she's bi. She's got
Yes. Yes.
the
Yes.
flag." Yeah. And just, yeah, so I love her.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things I really, really adore.
Ah.
But I should let you go, and I should go because I have a few things to do, a little bit to eat before I go to bed.
All right. It was
It has actually
absolute.
been
Yeah.
it's actually been cold a bit here in LA.
Mm.
For LA. I hope things are okay with you.
Thank you. It has been an absolute pleasure talking with you again.
Thank you.
This has been so much fun.
Mhm. I'm going to give you just a little bit of a hint of the thing I'm going to work on. I just have become ever so slightly obsessed by Maud Adams.
Yes.
Um, I don't think I want to write a play based on her, but I think maybe her life could inspire a play
Hmm.
about someone who is a little bit like her.
Okay.
In
Cool.
my opinion. So we'll see.
Yep.
Jacques, good night.
Yep. Good night, Jacques. Good
Claire
night.
as a Watson would be interesting.
For sure.
Boy, that would be a reimagination for sure.
Yes.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you
Well,
so very, very much.
absolutely.
Happy New Year. I hope you do well with your classes and all this, and I'll keep you informed about Whispering Stones and then, of course, Princess of Shadows.
Absolutely. And yet, thank you again for being on. Thank you to everyone in the chat who showed up and asked questions and recommended us wild Sherlock Holmes adaptations. And yeah, this has been great. So thank you
Yeah.
again.
If only my internet was better.
Yeah.
That's
But
it.
yeah, but
Thank
I
you
mean,
so much.
yes. I mean, something had to go wrong. I mean, when we did the Carmilla stream, the fire alarm went off in my dorm
Oh,
room. So
God,
something had to
yes.
go wrong.
Oh, God, yes. I've
Uh,
rewatched that like 4 times.
yeah. Oh, that was such a good stream.
That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Hmm.
But anyway, thank you
Anyway,
so much. Thanks for meeting. Lovely to meet everybody else one way or another. But Cody, hi.
yes.
And then I wish you all a happy New Year.
Yes. Happy New Year. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you later. Bye, everyone.